Okay, here comes another podcast. I was asked a question today. What's up with a podcast? So we're gonna make this one a little bit more productive, right? We're gonna talk a little bit about starting your own business. I think a lot of folks out there would love to start their own business, right? And call yourself a CEO, owner, and whatnot. Now, one thing before we get into this, look, when you own your own business, that's just a business registration. It doesn't make you any less successful or any more failure. You're not better than anybody else. Nothing has happened. You have just registered your business literally for $300. So when sometimes I hear somebody say, I own my own business, it means absolutely nothing to me. It means you've registered something within your local state. The reason why I highlight that is because it takes a lot more than just to say, oh, I own my own business. 99% of the people will fail when they own their own business. And why do I say that? Because a lot of people don't think about differentiation. But let's start from the very beginning. This podcast is not supposed to be meant to be exhaustive. It's just supposed to get you to thinking first two things. One is mission, vision, and values, right? Any company has those set in stone. What does that mean? You're going to have to Google it, right? Vision is the long-term vision of your company. What are you trying to do? Where are you going? Mission is how you get there, in a sense. And those statements are typically very succinct. And each word in that statement is well thought out. I think the best way, not to say this is a cheat way, but the best way to set those up is really to analyze what type of business you're opening. Say it's a spa, and then go to Google and look for top level spas, and then go to their about page, and you'll see how they're thinking. What are some of the thoughts that they put into it? What are some of the things they want to focus on? What's their mission? How will they accomplish their mission, and so forth? And then values essentially establishes ground rules how your company will operate. Very important. Why? Because when it comes to a tough decision or a decision based on risk, maybe an absence of all information, you're going to revert to those values, and you will have your staff revert to those values to make a decision. So ultimately, the outcome of that decision may not be right, but the risk will be low. Why? Because you've made it based on fundamental principles that you have established for your company. So the integrity will be intact and everything else. So look up mission, vision, and values. You need that to even begin thinking about a company, and you should have that probably before you even register your business. The other thing you really need to do, really before even thinking about your product differentiation, I'll get to that in a little bit, is something called SWOT analysis. So what I've done here really quick is I'll switch over to the other screen. It's SWOT. Type that on Google. Again, I'm not going to go through this in detail unless somebody asks me to do so at some point in time. But this is basically strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And there's so much information on this. I've pulled up one page. This is really random page. And just to give you a flavor what this is, right? A lot of times when somebody starts their own business, I ask them, what are your strengths? Well, I am, because I know how to do this. No, you're a worker if you know how to do this. That's not a strength. And by the way, if I can replicate what you're doing, or if I can get somebody else to replicate it, then it's not really a strength, right? Strength is differentiation. What do we do well? How are you different, right? What have our customers or partners told us they like about us? That's the feedback you don't even get. Now, I mentioned doing this in the beginning, but some of the questions you see here are phrased in a sense that you've been running this business. Why? Because this is not something you do one time, and I can't stress this enough. You and your team, or you and your significant other, or you and your friend, or you or whoever need to sit down and do this in the beginning, and essentially do this quarterly, and keep doing this until you find value in it, right? Opportunities, how do you grow? Weaknesses, right? Oh, I have no weaknesses. Yeah, right. Then you're out of business, right? Threats. What are the threats, right? What are economic threats? Let me give you an example of a threat that I perceive as a threat, right? Oh, I want to sell shampoos online. Okay. Well, everybody else sells shampoos online. Okay. So I'm going to go and I'm going to undercut my price. Okay. Then they're going to undercut their price as well. And now we're going to erode profits. I've mentioned that in a previous podcast, right? So there's different ways of looking at this. I highly encourage you to take a look at this before doing any business. You need to put in the time. Registering company is easy, so is failing. Making sure you put in the time so you don't fail, or at least you minimize the likelihood of failure, is key, right? So that was SWOT analysis. So mission, vision, and values, and then a SWOT analysis, right? I'll quickly touch on differentiation, right? How are you different? And I keep, the more conversations I have about this with somebody or business owners, the more they kind of hate me. I don't want to say hate me, but the more they get sick and tired of asking me this question. What are you doing different? Well, we're installing it better than anybody else. Well, now I'm installing it better than anybody else, right? Who's to say who's right? I don't know. The customer will show me. No, I'll show you. So it's a tit for tat type of a conversation, really to prove to somebody that you truly have to find this differentiation. Differentiation creates value. Value creates money. Value, I should say, creates growth and money and so forth. So how will you be different? When you're selling shampoos online, how are you different? How is your product different? Okay, let's boil down to the ingredients that are in it. Okay, let's boil down to the ingredients. If I copy those ingredients, I can sell the same thing you're selling. So how will you sustain that differentiation even if you've established it for some amount of time is key. And I always say this to everybody. Keep asking yourself, you're sitting on the toilet, how am I different? You're in a store doing groceries, how am I different? How will I be different next to my competition? Whoever's doing the same thing. Sometimes it's an impossible question to answer. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but I guarantee you and I reassure you, when you position yourself to think about it every day, when you're sick, when you're tired, when you don't want to think about it anymore, when you think you're exhausted, then your mind will turn into this mode where you'll start picking up little things that are different, right? And differentiation cannot necessarily be based on price. Why? Because like I mentioned earlier, we'll erode each other's profit when we are in fierce competition. Also think about when you're setting up your business, and I'll say this ad hoc, I haven't really structured this to go from A to Z. Think about barrier of entry. What is that? How much does it cost for me to get into that business? Say, I keep using the example of shampoos. Say I want to sell shampoos online. What's the cost of that? Probably trivial. Forgetting for a second the amount of money and time it takes to produce those or engage with somebody that already has them and slap a label on them, right? So if the cost is low, it's called a low barrier of entry. Therefore, the competition is high. Why? Because everybody can duplicate it and everybody can do it. And we're not talking about a specialized skill that you're pursuing as part of a career. We're talking strictly about business. Business is never you, it's the brand. And you should always think about it this way. That's why when people answer me, hey, how are you different? When I hear I already scratch that. Whatever skills you have, whatever knowledge you have can either be copied or duplicated. So what will the business do? How will it be different? I hope this is helpful for you guys. These are just literally probably 5% of what you should be thinking about when you're engaging in any type of investment, right? So you don't lose your money. Hit me up, give me a few comments, let me know what you think, ask me some questions.